welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be doing my quarter one wrap-up, so the books I read January to March, and in those months I've read 19 books. I read 4 in January, 6 in February, and 8 in March. So I guess with nothing else, really not much else to say, we're gonna just get into the video. So, starting with January, I have 4 physical books that I read this month. 3 of which, 3 of the 4 books I read were for school. So it was a very school-focused month, it seems like. I was just kind of getting back into the swing of things and all that. So, the first book I read was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I just really enjoyed the art references. I really enjoyed the conversation of what makes a life worth living, and I just found it to be a wonderful time. This has the likelihood of being one of my favorites of the year, and I'm really happy that I managed to read it this year. I wanted to read it last year, so I pre-ordered it, but I didn't get to it. But I'm happy I got to it as soon as I could this year. Do I have any major plots? I found that Henry's plot point, the love interest, to be so heartbreaking. He just really just wanted a good connection with people, and I found that to be so relatable and pure, and I just really enjoyed this book. Okay, books I read for school. I read the first play. I read Macbeth. This was the second time I actually read it, because I read it first in high school, and I think it's my favorite Shakespeare play. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I loved the relationship between Lady Macbeth and Macbeth. I loved the magic within it, and it also contains my favorite Shakespeare scene of all time, which is at the end of this play when Macbeth and Macduff are fighting, and Macbeth is very confident and he tells it, and he's just like, "You can't kill me because I cannot be killed by someone who's born of a woman." And Macduff is like, "Joke's on you. I was removed from your mother via C-section." And I just really love the oh shit moment that Macbeth went through. It makes me laugh every single time, and I just really enjoyed this. We have the first ebook I read, The Female American by Umka Eliza Winkfield. I read this for my American literature class. The ending felt like a cop-out to me. I did not appreciate the religious behavior and how Christianity was pushed onto the native people within it, and that really annoyed me. I know it's true, but it just annoyed me so much. But yeah, there isn't much to say about it, because I also read Common Sense by Thomas Paine. this just kind of makes me get Hamlet, the Schuyler sisters from Hamilton stuck in my head every time I think of it. The actual essay explains a lot about the workings of America, and it definitely shows I really enjoyed the conversation that it had around monarchy and what gives the monarch the right to be the monarch, And I think that was a very interesting conversation that was within this book. And so that's something I really enjoyed. So it's my very short January wrap up. So now we're on to February, which I read 6 books. In which 4 of them were physical books that I owned, and the rest were ebooks. So we're gonna start off with Hamlet, the second Shakespeare play I read for my class. I enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I found it to be very, very thrilling. It was confusing about what was happening all the time. I also I found the ghost thing to be extremely interesting, and the conversations of what's really going on. Is Hamlet really crazy, or what's really happening within this play? I found it to be very engaging, and I found at the end, the way we got to the tragedy portion and all the death, it was just really engaging, and I just really enjoyed this one. It's probably a close second to what my favorite Shakespeare play is. Next we have 2 books that I read for my American Lit class. So I have The Coquette by Hannah Webster Foster. It was just very dramatic. It was so dramatic. I found it so dramatic. And the ending was very, what the hell? It definitely encourages the proper behavior for a woman during that time, but it was also very interesting insight into womanhood during early America. I also read Nature by Ralph Waldo Emerson. It was so long. It had very interesting ideas, but it was very long-winded. It probably could have been cut a lot. It kind of needed a red pen to scratch things out. I did enjoy the conversations around religion. I always have an interest in religious context, and I really enjoyed seeing that within this book. Anyways, I read Soul of the Sword by Julie Kagawa. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I didn't care for the demon point of view. I didn't care much about many of the characters. However, I did like the development in Mimako's kitsune powers. I didn't like the possession plotline. That's the big thing I didn't enjoy. It was fine. It was an interesting sequel, but I finished the trilogy in this quarter as well, so I'm going to just I also did a reread of my one true love, Six of Crows by Lee Berdugo. I obviously gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I knew that it was going to be a favorite. I love it so much. I just love the interactions. I love the found family. I love the heist. I love everything about this book. And I know at this point it's very biased viewing, but I just adore it so much. I also just kind of feel like I can't really give much of a review. This is probably my 5th or 6th time rereading this duology, so it's kind of like I tend to read it at least. I try to read it at least once a year, and so I might end up reading it again this year then, but I don't really know. Didn't reread it last year. That was pretty much my reason behind reading it. Okay, so I have one more book that I have read in February, and that is Othello Again by Shakespeare, the 3rd book, Shakespeare book. I gave this one 2 out of 5 stars. I didn't like how the entire plotline was just lack of communication. I did not like that one. It was literally watching a train wreck. And I just didn't enjoy it. It was very domestic focused, and I don't really enjoy that. That's why I don't really read romances. So it's just, I tried. Didn't work out. I truly just don't care. Unfortunately, this is like my least favorite Shakespeare play that I've read for this class, but it was the 2nd least favorite, so my ranking is like Macbeth, Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, Othello, and Cymbeline. So that's what I currently have. And now we're into March, which is my biggest reading month. I read 9 books. I read most of them physically, so there's also that. I suppose we will, let's get into a decent position. We're gonna get into it. I finished off the Six Crows duology by finishing my reread of Crooked Kingdom. I obviously give this 5 out of 5 stars. I enjoy this. Again, the interactions between characters, I adore. It's beautiful. I love it. It's just, I know I'm very biased on this series. I just like how everyone they truly get to know each other in this book, I found. Like, they weren't really, for the most part, they weren't really trying to get to know each other during Six of Crows, but they had to get to know each other really well at Crooked Kingdom, and I really appreciated watching that all happen. Next I read Honey Girl. I do own this book, but I'm forcing a friend to read it, so I don't currently have it with me right now. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. It was so good. I really enjoyed the conversation about really finding out what you want to do with life, and just kind of like the conversation about mental illness and academic burnout. I love the relationship. I just really loved it. I loved how she kept mentioning stars because she did a dramedy. I just really loved it. I really enjoyed seeing, like, it was nice people illustrating how having your focus being only on academics, how dangerous that could be to your mental state. And it's definitely something I could see in a friend of mine, and it's just fine. We got the fourth Shakespeare play I read, which is Romeo and Juliet. This gave 3 out of 5 stars. It's fine. Something else I noticed, this is actually the first play I read in 9th grade. This is the one we read to start our Shakespeare play every year up through the end of high school. And reading it now is just, it's very basic compared to the rest of them. It's so easy to read. And that's something I definitely noticed during this reread. Also, Romeo goes a little too hard for every single one of his crushes. Okay, now I got into a couple big books. I finally got to reading Ghost of the Shadow Market by Cassandra Clare, Sarah Rees Brennan, Maureen Johnson, Kelly Link, and Robin Westerman. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars once I averaged out the ratings, and it's just a collection of short stories from the Shadowhunter world surrounding this Shadow Market. My favorite was Every Exquisite Thing and A Deeper Love. Those are my 2 favorite stories from this. I for sure think Every Exquisite Thing was my favorite. I really enjoyed the earlier stories that take place like before. I didn't care as much for the ones that like after what am I thinking? For like the Wicked Powers, like setting up that, but like I did, however, really enjoyed the earlier ones, especially the ones that set up for the next book I'm going to talk about. But overall, it was really nice to read this anyways. And I lied, I just realized that there's a different book there. Quickly going back to books I read for school, I read Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. I found this to be a very important read, and it's an interesting way of showing trauma, and I don't know how to critique it because the author, Harriet Jacobs, was actually a slave, and this is based heavily off of her own experiences with a few changes to like names and stuff. So I don't really have anything else to say except to acknowledge that I did read it and it was quite interesting. Now we have this big book, Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I found that it was a lot. I'm concerned for what's upcoming. I really enjoyed Cordelia. I loved Anna within this, and Matthew and James. I found that it was really interesting to see hints to like the future series. Like there's a hint to the dark artifices within this book, and I found that really cool. And it was a fun time, and that's really what I'm here for in Cassandra Clare books. I'm just here for a fun time. So like, it was nice. It was nice to finally read this, especially since so many people are talking about this series again because Jane of Iron came out this month. So it was just kind of like, might as well catch up on her books so I don't feel like I'm about to be spoiled all the time. Okay. So continuing on with Soul of the Sword, I read Night of the Dragon, which concludes this series, and the conclusion of this series trilogy, I gave this 2 out of 5 stars. I really did not enjoy this. It was very underwhelming. I found that every single battle felt like it was fine. I just felt like everything was not a big deal. I feel like this trilogy should have been condensed into like even just a duology. It just, not much even really happened. I just was very underwhelmed, and I guess it kind of put a sour taste in my mouth with this trilogy because I adored the first book, and it just kind of gradually went down. It just went downhill really fast as I read it, and it's just slightly upsetting, especially considering how much I really enjoyed this book, the first book. But what can you do? Okay, the last 2 books were both in regards to school. I read Sang Myself by Walt Whitman for my American Lit class, and this was a long ass poem, and it should not have been as long as it was. Definitely should have been like edited. It had some very beautiful moments though, and I really appreciated that, and it had some homoerotic hints within it. But other than that, it was just way too long. And now we have my last Shakespeare play that I will read, hopefully. And that was Cymbeline. I did not like this. I was confused. I didn't know what was going on. I did not care for any of them. It was like relationship centered as well. I just did not care at all. So I guess that's where we can end this. Kind of a negative end. But there's my quarter 1 wrap up for January to March. I would have to say my favorites this quarter were Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, Honey Girl, and Chain of Gold. I'm thinking I'm going to change up how I wrap up now, especially since I seem to be reading more. So I think I'm going to be doing a monthly wrap up. Then maybe I'll still do the quarterly thing where I kind of go through all the books I read. Kind of like Books in Lala, where she goes through all the books she read and then her top 5. Because my main focus is I want to try to get my read books down. My current physical TBR down. So I can probably like use the wrap ups to kind of like lower it, because like most of the books I did read I already owned, and I really liked that. That was the thing I did. So anyways, that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in my next one.